This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Anyone, any questions, guys, before we get started? Any questions that I can take? Does anyone have any questions before I get started? Are we good? Yes? No? Any questions that I have? Okay, so then I'll start with a couple of questions then. So, what is an availability set? What do you all mean by an availability set? And how do you create an availability set? And what are the components of an availability set? While creating, what do you configure for an availability set out here? Anyone, did we do that? Do we know what an availability set is, guys? Guys, I know it's a morning session, but even I'm equally sleepy. So I cannot really take the class if no one answers out this one. There's no point in moving forward.
It's the fault domain and the update domain.
Fault domain and the update domain. Okay. What exactly is a fault domain and what is an update domain then? Where do we use a fault domain and why do we use an update domain here?
Update domain is a already like default domain which is available in a system.
Okay. And why is it used for again? And why do we have a fault and an update? Good, please. Okay. hmm Okay. Okay, but why do we create a fault domain and update domain? What is a fault domain used for, and why is an update domain used for? Guys, did you all read the documentation that I said? What do you mean by a fault domain here, and what is an update domain here?
Update domain for sharing the resources and updating the resources, but the fault
Okay,
domain is sharing the network. So totally availability set is called as a logically grouping of VMs
okay, okay.
based on the
So,
availability of zone, availability of a
based
fault
on
and
the
update domain.
based on the availability. Okay. Not super convinced with that. Uh, Again,
Fault
if you're
domain, it's a group of virtual machine that shares a common source, like
shares a common what source? Sorry,
common power source
power
and
source.
the
So why
NIC.
do we put? Okay, okay. Then why do we put it under a fault domain, or why do we select a fault and an update domain out here?
So, Ravi Teja here.
Good news.
Yeah. So, I believe what I understood yesterday, the fault domain is nothing but the without unrecurring challenges. It might be power challenges. It might be XYZ challenges. Because of that, our primary storage account, our primary space that we hired for the desk data center, if it
Okay,
get failed later it will switch it to the secondary desk. If we hired only a one data center, I'm going to say one space, uh, I hope it will go down. If we are hired virtually, if one or two, then it will switch it to one to the other.
okay. But yes, but what exactly do you mean by these terminologies out here? A fault and an update domain. What is this combination of about? Yesterday, how many fault and how many update domains did we create? Two fault and two update
Yeah.
domains.
Yes.
Then why exactly did we create two fault domains and why exactly did we create two update domains? What is this fault domain for and what is the update domain for?
The reason again we have created this two fault domain and two update domain is either in vertically or horizontally.
Okay.
So, if you could, yesterday, as I remember the diagram, like, F1, F0,
Hmm.
whereas, either it might be go vertically, horizontally, it will directly switch it to the another user. That is the reason we selected the, two users. I mean to say two data spaces.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, if any two servers down, it will switch to the another server for
Okay.
that kind.
Okay. If one is down, we'll switch to the other server. But
Yes.
yeah, but that's fine. But okay, for high availability. Okay, high availability, yes. But the question here is that very simple. What exactly is a fault and what is an update domain? That's it. That's the question. As an interviewer, I'm asking this question, telling what does you mean by the definition of fault and what do you mean by the definition of update domain? So that's the question that I want to look at. Yes, it's high availability, availability sets, availability zones, virtual machine scale sets. Everything is for high availability only. Correct. But why is fault domain used for and what is update domain used for? Did we read the
Updates
documentation?
for updating resources.
Sorry,
Updating
can
the
you come again?
resources. If it may. Updating the
Updating the
resources.
Okay, updating the resources. Okay, and what is fault is for?
Sharing the network. Common things will do in
Sharing
a
common things.
fault
That's
domain.
fine. So, okay, sharing common things. Okay, so what happens if they share common things?
Network.
Hmm. Yes, sir, please. Did we look at the documentation again? Availability set in Azure, and what does it mean out here? And what do you mean by an availability set out here? And what exactly is a faulted domain here? Update domain and a fault domain. And what are the maximum number of fault domains we can have, guys? What is the maximum number of fault domains that we can have? And what are the maximum number of update domains that we can have?
Three.
Three what?
Three.
Fault or update? Yeah, three what?
Fault.
Fault or update?
Fault.
One, what is the number of maximum number of updates that we can have? And what is the maximum number of update domains we can have? Anyone? Guys, this is not good. You all are not. Sorry, come again,
Five.
please. Five. Okay. Anyone else? Two into five. Yes. Did we read the documentation? Very firstly, did anyone read the documentation? If you did read the documentation, I'm pretty sure it is not five. I'm 100% sure it is not five out here,
I
which
think
means that
20.
we are 20 exactly. That's what the documentation clearly tells you out here. 20 update domains. Why aren't we reading the documentation, guys? Why aren't we really reading anything out here? Fault domain is for hardware failures. Fault domain is to protect yourself for a hardware failure. Update domain is for planned maintenance activity. Protect your applications against a hardware failure. Update domain is for protecting yourself against a planned maintenance activity. I could have just went ahead, I could have just told this and move forward. But I explained the entire thing, right? I expect you all to read something. If there is 10% from my end, 10 to 90% I'm expecting from your end, guys. This is something that you have to go ahead and do a self study on. Until and unless you don't do this, you won't be able to crack the interview. Very importantly, the interviewers are going to ask this particular question out here. One question is enough to break your interview. One question you're not able to answer this, it's enough to break your interview out here. Do you see what it is telling you? Fault domain defines a group of virtual machines, shares a power source out here. By default, virtual machines are configured something like this. While placing it set does not protect you from the application of that stuff. That's what it's telling you, to protect you against hardware failures. Update domain here is telling that okay, fine, machines placed in the same update domain will be rebooted at the same time. So please place it across multiple update domains, and that's what we did. So update domains are for planned maintenance activities by Microsoft. By Microsoft out here. This is what an sorry, this is what an update domain really means out here. And we placed yesterday into two fault and two update domains out here as such. So in my availability set, I have how many? Two fault, two update domains. How many virtual machines are placed? Three machines are placed across this one. Now my question is that, okay, I now want to update the number of fault in the update domains. Because the maximum fault is what? 3. Maximum update is what? 20. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead, say that my fault domains are 2, update domains are 10. Can I do this? Can I update the number of fault domains in the update domains after I create the availability set?
Yes.
No. Yes.
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to get your voice, ma'am. Can you come be a little louder, please?
Yes, we can do it.
Okay, how do we do it then? Where do we go to do it? Anyone? Can we update? Can I update right now in the current configuration? Can I update the number of fault domains and can I update the number of update domains out here? I want to take it to 10 and I want to put my fault at 2 only. How can I do it? Where should I go to do it? Guys, can we do it? Yes, no.
Already we have, like, we can create a two domain.
Okay, your voice is very distorted. Can you please come again, please? I did not really follow you.
The fault domain we can create a two domains in this. So already we have like
Yeah, we have 2, but I just want me to make sure the fault domain is 2. Or I want to put the fault domain at 3 and the update domain at 10. Can I do it? Can I update the configuration of my availability set?
Once we have created this,
Not. Yes. Go ahead, Teja.
yeah, there is a lot of echo. So I was saying, I remember yesterday, once we have created this, fault domain or update domain, we cannot go ahead and edit it.
Exactly. You cannot go ahead and edit it. That's the right answer. You cannot go ahead and edit a fault domain and update domain configuration once you have the availability set sample that is created. Very simple. You cannot do that. Then can I add an existing virtual machine to my availability set? I have the availability set. Can I add an existing virtual machine to the availability set right now?
Yes, we can do
Yes,
that.
we can.
Okay. Are we sure about that? Are we sure that we can add an existing virtual machine? Virtual machine is already created. Can
Yes,
I
we can
take
do
that
that.
virtual? Can do that.
Yes.
How can we do that?
While creating
How
it,
can we?
I'm sorry,
No, my
there is
question.
echo from my end or
No worries. Go ahead, please.
so while creating it, we have choose like yesterday while you creating the another virtual machine, we have chosen like demo VM for the second one also, the availability zones while creating the next one.
Yeah, but the question here is that I already created the machine. I already have the machine. Can I
So we
take
are
the machine and
we are creating the another one, right? For the
no? I
existing,
already
we cannot do
created.
anything.
I
Okay.
already have an existing virtual machine. Let's say I already have a fourth virtual machine. Can I go there and place it inside an existing availability set?
No.
We can. How can we? Okay, one answer is no. The other answer is yes. Okay, how can we? Okay, availability set settings. How can you add in availability set settings? Let's go there in availability sets. I have virtual machines. Can I add something here? Can I add something here? So I already have a machine. The question here is that I already have created a machine. And while creating the machine, I forgot to say that it's availability set. After creating it, I realized that okay, fine, I want to create the machine in availability set. Can I now go ahead and place the machine inside the availability set? No, that's right. No, it's no. You cannot place a machine into an availability set. You have to make sure to go ahead and while creating the machine, that's where you have to go ahead and let's say choose the existing availability set out here. You cannot place it after you create it out here as such. These are interview questions, guys. These are questions that they will trick you in the interview. This is how the interviewer will ask you the questions. Please read the documentation. You have to read the documentation out here. There is no way that you're, let's say, going to just look at the classes and get through it. No, you have to read the documentation. Please pull your socks up. Please pull it up and start reading the documentations out here as such. All right, so let's come back and let's look at this. I have virtual machines, not one, but three virtual machines that I placed. So one, two, and the third virtual machine out here in an availability set of a configuration called 2x2 with two fault domains and two update domains out here. So I have three machines placed in the same availability set, and the virtual machines are placed or are stacked in this order, which is 0010 and 01 out here as such. So these three machines are placed in such a kind of an order. Now I want to go ahead and convert this machines, like each and every machine, into a web server. So I want to convert these machines into web servers that are running similar applications. When I say similar applications, if I place irctc.co.in here and here and also here, this is what I want to do. I want to place same irctc here, irctc here, irctc here out here. So very firstly, how do you convert a machine into a web server? What do we do to convert a virtual machine into a web server again?
We need
We're
to
adding
install
DNS here.
IIS
Install IIS, exactly. You need to install IIS here.
configurations.
Exactly, you need to go
Um,
inside the machine. So how do you, sorry, yeah, how do you configure the IIS again? What do we do to configure the IIS, guys?
You need to go into the roles and features option. There
roles
we
of
can install IAS.
Okay, roles and responsibilities or roles and features, then role-based
Yes,
installation, IIS. Do we remember that? Do we remember
HTTP
how
and
did we
HTTPS.
yes.
HTTP, HTTPS? That's something that we selected. Those are the ports that we selected while creating the machine. But the question here is that how do we configure the IIS? Can anyone guide me? I have a machine here called VM1. I want to configure IIS here. How do I do that? What should I do?
Please copy the public IP address here and go to
I'm
the
sorry. Can you come
RCM.
again? I'm sorry. Can you come again, please?
Public
From
IP.
here, please copy the public IP address and go to RDP connection.
Okay, RDP connection. Firstly, I establish an RDP connection. You enter remote desktop. The let's say IP here, and I'll say the username and go ahead hit my password. So very firstly, I'll do RDP. I'll establish the RDP connection out here. Okay, I'm inside the RDP right now, and let's wait for the RDP to load up. And what should I do next after I go inside the RDP session?
Server manager.
Go to the server manager.
Server manager, exactly. I have to go into the server manager. So let me wait for the machine to start. And once the machine starts up, there is an application called server manager out here. And once inside server manager, what should I do?
Check the roles and
Go
features
to
option.
add roles and features.
Then to
Add roles
install the
and
piece
features,
of
exactly.
software website.
Yes. That's the first option. Go to add rules and features. So let me go there and say that let me wait for the server manager to load. And once that's loaded, I'll say add rules and features. I'll say next. And what do I do? Role based or feature based installation.
First option.
First option, and yes, that's after that. I
Then
select the
select.
virtual
Then
machine
next.
and then scroll down and I select web server
Web server.
IIS.
Add
I'll
feature.
say next, next, this one. So this is how I go ahead and okay, guys, you're getting a lot of okay. So I go ahead into that particular machine and do a feature based installation, and this particular feature is called as what? I I
IIS.
and this is something that I'm doing on one particular machine out here. Now the question for everyone is that do we have to configure the IIS on machine 2 and machine 3 as well? Do we do that? Yes, no,
I,
Yes.
yes,
Yes, we have
most
to do.
definitely. Yes, we have to do it. Yes. Reason being, I want to create three different web servers because if one web server is down, I still need web server 2 and web server 3 to come into picture as a part of the same availability set out here. Let's go there. Let's wait for the machine 1 to be configured. So it will take like a minute or so. And once the machine 1 is configured, I will go into my C drive into a folder called inetpub. So it's configured right now. I'll go into a folder called inetpub out here, internet publishing folder, inside which I have a www root folder out here, inside which I have these two files. And because of this, if I copy my public IP address and enter, this particular page called IIS will be, or this particular page called IIS will be starting to load. Now what I'll do is inside this particular, let's say, folder, last time what we did, we downloaded HTML, we placed HTML out here. So let's say inside this folder right now, I will go ahead and start creating a notepad document. Let's open up a notepad. And in this notepad, I'll write a simple HTML file. I'll write a very simple HTML file out here. So it'll start with H1, heading 1. I'll say hello from server demo VM00 and I'll say from East US 2. And I'll close my HTML body. So simple HTML starting with H1, which is nothing but the heading. This is the H1 out here, closing out here. And I'll save this document inside this particular folder as a default.html page. I'll just save as and I'll say it is all files. Let me go into that particular document and I'll save this as in brackets. I'm giving it as default.html. Now I have what? A default.html page. So what I can do is that using this particular IP, when I hit this IP, directly it will go into that particular folder, look for iis.html and give the content to you. But now if I want to load, sorry, if I want to now load the default.html, I'll say forward slash default.html. Right? I'm getting this. You can try those. You can try out the same thing. This is now an internet publishing folder, meaning this is now published over the internet. And if I send this link to you all, you can simply go to this particular link and you will be able to see the same thing out here. Which means what all did I do right now? I went ahead and I did a couple of things. The very first thing is I installed IIS went into the www root folder, added a file called default.html, in which I have written the following content telling that hello from server east-west to out here as such. This is the
Uh,
website, meaning, just go please.
Suresh Teja here. So again, when you wrote on the notepad where you started with a bracket H1, I mean to say the header of HTML and the last one, is it mandatory to write that? If you don't write, will it won't take into the server? I mean to say the
Uh, can you come again, please? So you're talking about this page, is it?
right. I was talking about now you have wrote a hello server from the in the notepad.
Mm-hmm.
So before you start your statement, you started with H1 in the brackets H1 and the end of the statement
Mm-hmm.
also H1. So is it
Yes,
mandatory? Is it a mandatory without if we can take out that can't we no outcome would be the same?
this is the syntax of HTML. It's a
Okay,
HTML syntax, so that's the reason I put this in. So probably you won't get the same output if you take this out. So I'm just sticking to the syntaxes of HTML. That's it. So even if you look at the document what Microsoft is giving you, if you open this out, this is the entire HTML XML document out here. This is the header, and you'll see all these things, head and all that stuff. It's all HTML basically that I'm writing this out in. So yes, that's the reason you will need that particular H1 and bracket H1 and all that stuff.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
Does answer your question? Yes. All right. So here I am right now. I am going ahead hitting this particular thing that hello from server 00, something like this. This is the content that I'm getting. So this is what I was doing. This is what I was telling that I was doing. That I added a default.html page inside which I added this particular content under that particular heading out here as such. I am assuming that this is my website. In place of this default.html, you can have your actual IRCTC application entirely running out here. But for simplicity, for the demo, I'm just putting a default.html page out here. And this is what I'm now telling is that I have an IIS configured here with a default.html page. And for application availability, which means that if if the default.html, if you are a user, you are going to this VM and default.html comes back to you, it's good enough. You are working, which means that you are able to, let's say, go and do your ticket booking and all that stuff. If this is down, I want server 2 or server 3 to give you the same page. So what should we do then on server 2 and server 3? What should we be doing on server 2 and server 3, guys?
You have to save the same
You have
content
to
in the
install
both
IIS.
servers.
Exactly. You'll have to save the same thing. You'll have to do the same thing on server 2 and server 3 also, which means that I am creating multiple instances of my application. Multiple instances. So that if one is down, the other machine can, let's say, talk back to me, or the third machine can talk back to me out here as such. Which means what do I need to do? I need to perform all these steps, right? Install IIS, go into the root folder, add the default.html out here as such. How do I do that? Into the machine, let's say 1 and 2. So 00 is done, 01 is there, and 02 is there. What do I do here then? How should I configure it?
Then again go to the copy the public IP address
Copy
and
the
log in into the RDP connection. And again install
Uh,
IIS and go to the root folder.
yes, you'll have to copy the public IP address, again install it. Same thing what I did on server 1, just this one. But the question can be that what if this machine doesn't have a public IP address? What if this machine doesn't have a public IP address? Or what if I don't want to log inside each and every machine? Probably this machine has a public IP address, but RDP is not enabled for some reason. Then what? Then how do we install the IIS? How do we, let's say, go ahead perform all these steps out here?
Can you give the DNS name?
DNS name is also not there. As in, like, your public IP address is not there. I mean, your public IP address itself is not there. You only have a private IP address, or you have a public IP address, but you are not allowed to do an RDP. Then how?
So, so it's before we deploying the RDP or after we deploying the RDP, the question is about. So if it is
No,
before
it's
we
not about.
deploying the RDP,
Mhm,
we will create an image for the first one through
mhm.
AMI. I mean to say,
Okay.
I'm just thinking it's a correct me if I'm wrong. We will
Mhm,
create an image of this first this RDP, and then we will deploy into the
mhm.
what we call the other RDPs, the
Okay,
same
so if you
image.
create the image, yes, you can do that. Same image, you can do that. But let's say I have the machines already. I want to configure it. I don't have any way to, let's say, get inside the RDP session. So then what? Is there a way? So you don't. Okay. Hmm. First thing, you can create. Can you create a virtual machine without an RDP? Yes, you can
No.
create a machine without the RDP. Yes, no, maybe.
Yes.
Can we create a machine without the RDP? Yes, definitely. You can create a machine without the RDP. Let's say I have a machine without the RDP right now. I want to install IIS, add a default.html inside a folder called what? Where should I add a default.html? Which folder should I add it? Root folder, exactly. I want to add I want to add it inside the root folder. Can it be done using a PowerShell script? Yes, definitely. Why not? Definitely yes. See, install IIS. Did we try this out? This is what I was asking you all. Did you all try installing IIS using PowerShell? And do you see what is there out here? Something called install Windows features called what? Web server. This is what I wanted, right? And then I have include all features and all that stuff. And this is the script that I'll be using. Very firstly, I'm trying to go ahead and import something called as server manager. So I'm trying to open the server manager. After that, I am installing a feature called what? Web server. After that, I'm going inside this particular folder, adding a file called default.html with a value called this is server and then the computer name. Whatever is the name of your virtual machine, I'm getting it from a variable. So if I copy this out, I'll paste it out there in the chat window as well. Guys, please take this out. Whoever is working on a laptop, whoever is, let's say, listening to the session on a laptop, please copy it. Copy the one that I pasted just now and post it in the WhatsApp group so that people can just pick it up from that particular WhatsApp group out there as such. So I have this one in, and what I'll do is that here I'll search for something called run or run command. I'll say run a PowerShell script, place the script here, and say hit the run button out here as such. As and when you hit the run button, the very first step, it will import the server manager, it will install the Windows feature. Finally, it will set the content for you out here. In this particular path, it will just go ahead and set the content out here as such. Once you do that, uh, it will take around 2 minutes of time to go ahead and install the IIS and do all these things out. I'll do the same thing on virtual machine 2 as well out here. Say run command, say run a PowerShell script, place this out, then go ahead and run this out here as such. Yes, following my point. Anyone, any questions that I can take till here? Yes, you can do that. Without having a public IP address, you can go ahead, run your scripts using this particular run command out here as such. Yes, getting my point. Anyone, any questions? And once you run this out, right? Now, what I did is that since it'll take 2 or 3 minutes of time to run it, before we started the session, I ran this out. And now if I just copy this IP, go to my browser and say default.html. This is what? Server demo VM1. If I take my VM2, copy this out and paste the IP in and say default.html. Okay, let's see if I did not copy it properly. This is 46. So let's go there. The default.html. VM2 out here as such. So now you have, now you have 3 different machines with the same code. And the reason that I've changed the HTML page slightly is to understand from where this code is actually, or from where this file is actually coming from. Is it VM1, is it VM2, or is it VM0? Where this code is actually coming from. So that's the reason I changed this slightly. And I now have 3 different default.htmls out here as such. All right. Any questions till here that I can take?
Uh, Suresh, one question. I hope
Yes,
I am
yes.
audible to you.
Yeah, you are audible to me. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So if you could remember, yesterday I sent an email. I hope this is the
Mhm.
same we have to do for my answer to the email before we
For
deploy.
the for the email, yes, I was thinking about that. So one thing, I mean, there are 2 different approaches that you can follow. I'll just reply back to that. Okay, I'll just reply back to the email. But yes, somewhat similar to this particular approach. Yes.
Okay. So if you could reply to that email, exact steps that really helps me in my live environment.
See, exact steps I won't be
I,
able to give you because
I
I'll
meant to say
firstly
that,
have to
yeah,
run.
that's fine. I understand. At least if you could refer me the any of the documents so that anyhow I'll going referring to this video. However, if you can send me any document link along with that email, that really helps to me.
Sure, I'll dig into that. I'll dig into that a little bit and I'll send it across to you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Yes. Anyone? Any more questions here? So I have default.htmls. In the first machine, I went inside the machine, configured it. Second machine, what I did, I used PowerShell and used something called as run command in order to go ahead and let's say install the IIS using this particular script out here. So I have a script called IIS install.ps1. I took that particular script and I'm running it on demo VM2 and demo VM1 and demo VM2. This is what I did right now. Yes, any questions still here? Are we good till here? Yes, no, maybe. Anyone, any questions? Anyone who's not following it till here? Anyone who's not following till here that I can, any questions that I can take till here?
No, we are good, sir.
Okay, fine. So let's say you have a user. Now your client is coming into the picture. Your client wants to use this particular application. Okay, let's say in place of this simple default.html, you have your actual application, irctc.co.in, something like that, which is running on all the 3 servers. Same application running on all the 3 servers right now. And do you all agree to the fact that each and every machine has its own public IP address? Demo VM00 has a public IP address called what? 2097.22.74. One has what? 160. Two has something ending with 46. So 3 machines, 3 different IP addresses out here. So I'll say this is IP1, IP2, IP3. and IP3. My question is that as a client, okay, I need to give you some or the other IP address to work with so that you can go ahead and start working on the website. So my question to you is that which IP address will you provide to the client? Is it IP1 or is it IP2 or is it IP3 or none of the
We
above?
won't pro we won't provide any IP. We will give DSNM.
Okay, you'll give a DNS name.
Yeah,
Let's say you have a
DNS.
DNS name. Let's say you have a DNS name called www.irctc.co.in. Again, this DNS name that you have should be pointing to one of the IPs, right? DNS name at the end of the day should resolve to one of the IP addresses,
Yes.
either one or either the first IP, second IP, or the third IP. So which IP address will we configure in the backend? Is it IP1, IP2, IP3?
The primary one, which is IP1.
IP1. Okay, great. So primary one, which is IP1, which means that the request is going like this. I, as a user, I'm going to irctc.co.in. This is in the background diverting me to the IP1, and this IP1 is nothing but a virtual machine that is running in the background, which has the default.html. It's giving me the content to the browser, and the browser is giving the content back to me, and I'm able to, let's say, go ahead, book the tickets and do all these things out. Now, let's say, for the argument purpose, let's say that the machine that is running against the IP1 is down. The machine that is running against IP1 is now down. What do we do right now then? Coming to the IP2. But again, if I want to switch it, meaning yes, you're right, I have to make sure that irctc.co.in right now doesn't point to IP1, but it points to IP2 out here. But if I have to do this, I have to go inside my domain manager record. So there is something called domain manager. Each and every domain will have its own manager out there. I'll have to go inside that domain manager. I'll have to update irctc.co.in to point out to IP2, which is anywhere going to take around 3 to 4 hours. If I update a record, it's going to take around 3 to 4 hours out here. So 3 to 4 hours, each and every request that is coming to your application will fail because your domain is not working. Each and every request will fail. Imagine that this is the Tatkal window. Application is not accessible. Imagine one day, 3 to 4 hours, the application is down. How much of loss would it be for government of India? Will it not? Definitely, it will be, because even in one particular given minute, there'll be lakhs and lakhs of people who are actually booking the tickets. And especially, let's say it's a high season, festival season. Imagine how many people are booking the tickets and how many people are facing the issue. Then what do I do out here? Because when the machine one fails, if I come here and then switch my application, I am not creating an application which is highly available. Very simple. The idea of creating three different virtual machines is this. If virtual machine 1 is down, automatically the request should go to 2. If 2 is down, automatically it should go to 3. Or if all the 3 are up and running, my request should equally spread across these machines. Meaning first user should go into machine 1, second should go into machine 2, third should go into machine 3 out here as such. Then what do I do in this case? Anyone, any thoughts? Because now you understand the fact that you
Yeah.
cannot be mapping this particular, let's say, irctc.co.in to either IP1 or IP2 or IP3. You cannot do this because if it fails, you have to update it manually. And if you update it manually, it'll take 3 to 4 hours to update it. And if you end up taking 3 to 4 hours each and every time a machine is going down, then you will end up, let's say, you know, putting a huge loss on your application. People will, stop even coming to your application out here. What else? What else can we do out here?
Suresh,
we can use the load balancer.
Can use a load balancer. Exactly. That's what we are coming down to. There is something called, I won't give IP1 or IP2 or IP3 to the user, but rather we get in something called as a load balancer in Azure, a load balancer or a load balancing solution, which will have its own IP. I can point my website called irctc.co.in to this particular IP address. Or IRCTC to this particular IP address out here. What this load balancer will do is that the load balancer is simple like a traffic constable. It will understand what machines are free, how the machines are working, and divert the traffic into the machines in an alternative fashion. Meaning, first request will go into first machine, second will go into second, third will go into third, fourth will again come back into first, and all that stuff. This is called round robin. Now, how do you configure a load balancer? How do you, let's say, attach this load balancer? Yes, we will talk about that. I will need a complete session in order to discuss about the components of load balancer, one of the most critical concepts, one of the most important concepts. Organizations will use such a kind of a concept out here. So yes, load balancer. And before I start that, I want you all to give it a read. Let's go back into availability options in Azure. And here you have what availability zones, availability sets, and what load balancer. What it's telling, combine the Azure load balancer with an availability zone or a set to, to get the most of your application resistance. The load balancer distributes traffic between multiple machines. And just click on this one. And this is what it tells you. And what is a load balancer? What exactly is the documentation for the load balancer and all these things up here? Yes. So tomorrow's session will be on what is load balancing. How do you configure a load balancer? How does a load balancer really work? What is a basic load balancer? What is a standard load balancer? What is a regional load balancer? What is a global load balancer? These things is out there is something that I will be focusing on. But before that, I want you all to, let's say, read about what is a load balancer out here. Before that, I want you all to read this on what a load balancer really is out here as such. Yes, any questions still here?
Yeah, Suresh, I have one question.
Go ahead,
Like,
please.
uh, you know, mm, I have a team, and where the client come and says, I need a virtual missions of 10 to 15, where I
Okay.
would be giving that virtual missions to the users for a training
Okay.
purpose that continues 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, and whenever they log in every day, the IP should be changing. The public IP is changing. So how
Okay.
do we give the a static IP? I mean to say, what we called a permanent IP for this entire 2 weeks without changing any IP address. How do we do that?
The reason it is changing, the reason this is changing is because the IP address is dynamic.
Right.
So I'll just keep you on mute. I'm getting a little echo. I'll explain that and then I can unmute you. Okay, the reason this is changing, so the requirement here is that they have a client and the client is telling that the IP address is continuously changing. The reason it's changing is because the IP address that you've probably created is not a static IP address, it's a dynamic IP address out here. So whenever you go into the virtual machine, go into the public IP address out here section out here. This is your public IP address. In my case, the public IP address is static. And if I create, let's say, a standard IP address, I'll only get a static out here. But in your case, you'll have two options out here, static and dynamic. Change it from dynamic, click on static and then save. So that whenever you restart your machine, whichever machine that you have, whenever you restart your machine, the IP address doesn't change. The IP address will be a static mode of IP address out here. So you just have to go to the IP address that is associated with the machine, change it to static.
So
Here I
where do
have
I
all I
change? How do
sorry.
I change? How do I change by the while creating VM? We need to select that option, or do we have option? It is because
You
that is
can
disabled.
yes, you can go ahead. Okay, when you say this is disabled, do you see static and dynamic out here? Like at your end, do you see a static and dynamic out here?
Yes. I mean to say,
So you'll have
now I can see in your screen, I can see only static. I don't see a dynamic. How do I select these static or dynamic?
while creating the public IP address. So when you create a virtual machine, you have a space where you can create the public IP address. And while creating a public IP address, you can tell whether you want a static IP address or a dynamic IP address. So if you put a static IP address in there, then that problem will not come into picture, wherein your clients are telling that what they are getting different IP addresses out there as such.
Okay. Oh, got it. I'll look into it, Graham.
Sure. Yes, any more questions here, guys? Anyone? Any more questions here? Okay. 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 If three virtual machines are constantly working. Mhm. Okay. It will give you an error message. If all the three machines are not available, then you'll simply get an error message telling that the machine is not available out here as such. So that's the reason we are making sure that these machines are a part of the availability set so that at least one machine is available at any given point in time. So I'm combining it with a load balancer so that you can manage the traffic going to these machines out there as such. Yes, any more questions here, guys? Okay, so that's it from my end. Please look at what is load balancing out here. Please have a read out here, and in tomorrow's session we'll configure and we'll, let's say, go ahead and see and do a demo on the load balancer. Thanks guys and have a good day. Thank you.